go ahead and start with the first question. What do you think about critical race theory? All right. I don't know how familiar you guys are with critical race theory, but it is a damnable lie. All right. What it is, it's a horrible, horrible thing that's been fostered on us through our primary educational system all the way up through higher education. The concept behind this is basically the idea of trying to say that America has done horrible things. They cite basically two items that they show that America is a horrible country. The fact that we did have slavery, not getting any credit for the fact that we eradicated slavery, and over 600,000 Americans died to eradicate slavery. And also the fact that women didn't have the vote, until what, 1920? I think it was 1920. And so they look at those two things and say, obviously we're a horrible country. It's also a basis of a place to be able to go to talk about the inherent racism of if you're white. All right, so the idea behind that is if you're white, you're a racist. They even talk about this kind of subconscious racism that we all have, whether we know it or not, and all the elements that are there. And so what's happened there is it's basically white guilt across the board, telling us that we're horrible. It leads to the idea of reparations. It leads to all kinds of things. Here's the thing you've got to get a hold of, is if we're going to talk, we're talking there about something that generally is considered a political thing, okay? But I want to go back and talk to you a little bit about it from a biblical perspective when you think about critical race theory, because interestingly enough, we know that the races, if you haven't been here, the races actually came, if you go back in Genesis chapter 11, you'll find the Tower of Babel. All right, when God actually divided people by their ability to speak with each other through different languages, what happened, and this is kind of a normal thing, you could do this with fruit flies in a laboratory. You put certain groups together and keep them together, the dominant gene rises to the top. And so the difference in pigment, the difference in face size, the difference in all the different things that happen that we say are races, it all came directly from the Tower of Babel, which means, please get this, every one of us can trace ourselves all the way back to Adam and Eve. We traced ourselves a large amount of people from Adam and Eve, and then all the way back down to Noah, Mrs. Noah, and their 3 sons and their wives. Now back to 8 people. And then everything came from there. Therefore, every race that is available, everything that we see in society came from 2 people, then back down to 8 people, then back to what we see today with 7.5 billion. So what we have here is an understanding, this is key, guys, that we are all brothers and sisters. We're all from exactly the same place. And so pigment, skin color, different facial shapes, all the different things that are there that we many times see people trying to divide us over, and that is a key thing. It is imperative that you understand, guys, is that whole concept of critical race theory is for the purpose of dividing us, so that we're going to talk about Black Americans, or we're going to talk about Native Americans, or we're going to talk about Asian Americans, or all the different things. And yet, from God's perspective, guess what we are? People. That's all we are. We're people. That's why we can share blood. That's because we all have that intrinsic DNA within us. So guys, because of that, and I want you to make sure you understand this, there is no basis for racism. There is no basis to have a weird attitude toward anyone else because of their physicality, because of something that's going on with them externally. What I really think is interesting, I don't know if you know this, but what I call the regressives, they call themselves progressives, but the liberals, the regressives, because they do, their stuff just takes you back, guys. It continues to, look at what's going on in our society with all the executive orders that Biden's putting in place. If you've ever noticed, the regressives love to quote one specific guy, MLK, Martin Luther King. I want you to think about that for just a minute. If you remember, Martin Luther King said that he dreamed of a day. Do you remember what the day was? When his children would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And yet the regressives, who constantly quote MLK, try and divide us based on the color of our skin. So they quote the very guy who would be going, what? No. Guys, what we have to understand is that there's an intention to divide us along certain groups. And what we need to understand is there is no basis for that. I am you and you are me. It really is the reality that we have here. And so because of that, critical race theory is destroying our society, specifically that new generation that's coming up who have been taught that now for quite some time.